For those of you on Zoom, I will likely be out of frame for a good portion of this. Before we jump in, let me give you the story. For those of you who don't happen to have 1 Samuel chapter 24 memorized off the top of your head. I haven't sinned against you. I've done nothing. Saul realizes that he's a jerk. Saul says that he's a jerk. Happy ending. Sort of. If the words aren't the same, you don't have a quote, because that's kind of the definition of a quote. You're right, I've sinned against you. And let's just ignore this because it's obviously propaganda. Well, there are plenty of theories. Let me say it this way. Everyone seems to know who wrote Samuel, and everyone seems to know when. So, we genuinely don't know. This seems a little odd. These are just a few big names because I don't want to basically kill you guys. He's an old guy. They said, whoops, we can't actually get rid of 26 because, well, he never explains why. So they shove it back into the book and go, well, darn, we can't have that. Let's shove 25 in there. That is literally his theory. So let's move on to the next guy. Cole. McCarter came in and he said, well, I have this fangled new theory that I'm working with known as the Deuteronomist. And so basically, he had the same theory that this guy did. He just came up with it later after we had the idea of the Deuteronomist. Now, I know that y'all really don't care about this. And I'll be honest, I'm starting to agree with you. Based on their hypothetical reconstruction of how they think the book was put together, what the heck is happening here? It kind of falls apart upon further inspection. Now, for option 1, that doesn't quite work. I'm innocent. I'm going to kill you. So we can kind of throw that option out. I cut off the cloak and didn't kill you. What a wonderful guy I am. And that is the history and the legacy of Jephthah. And unfortunately, when I researched this, you know what I found? I found out that most people are not interested in writing commentaries about intertextuality. I found one book, and that one book was a brief overview of the entire Old Testament. So, to wrap this up real quickly, is this a quote? Well, that is basically my paper. I will not kill you. I will not take vengeance into my own hand. We have him taking vengeance into his own hands and trying to kill people in the very next chapter.
I read a version of this paper and now I have actually a question.
Absolutely, that is completely possible.
But why did you choose this topic? What inspired you?
It's his fault. So, shameless plug. If you get the chance to take one of Dr. Bunn's classes, focuses
That's
on...
not going to affect your grade. Did you ever figure out what you were trying to figure out? That other topic?
Well, and then I actually found something that would indicate that it could have been the thing that I was looking for the entire time, and I said, wow, I wish I saw that a year ago. Maybe. It's possible. Oh wait, sorry, this is professional. It warrants further research.
Can I ask, do I get to ask a question? Can you have it both ways?
Yes, you can. So I can have my cake, and I can eat it too.
In the midst of all of that, I appreciate, I know you had some frustration with ending so inconclusively.
Yes.
And then finally, you are endlessly entertaining. All right!
Hey guys!
Thank you, Genevieve.
I was originally going to present first, but then Dr. Shelton teaches at 4:30. So I'm going to chalk it up to that instead of the fact I was too scared to present after Daniel. You're about to listen to a grammar paper, so I apologize in advance. I once was a really bad Greek student. Verbs are hard, that it's so difficult to understand something that is so not difficult to understand. Action starts. Are we making stuff up? Foreshadowing, potentially. I call it versus the verb because it's very appropriate. It's a war that the linguists are currently losing and will never win. Daniel and I were cracking up because we reached the ends of our papers. We read a bunch of books to find out that the people who had the answers have been lying to us. So they don't actually have the answers either. So if there is a problem, we have 6 Greek tenses. And as far as I'm concerned, 6 is not equal to 3. I don't like the way Holt did that because that seems like an arbitrary assumption. So I'm going to make an arbitrary assumption myself. And that's really ambiguous as a definition, but I'm choosing to look past that. Does that keep you up at night? Because it did for me, and I don't know if I'm embarrassed to admit that publicly. If something has not been necessarily determined, if it's entirely kind of hypothetical and inferred, and the best theories we have are then reconstructions of something that's hypothetical, you know what I think we should do to that level of uncertainty? I'm going to assign doctrine to that. So simply, it doesn't exist, they're all dead, we don't speak the language, and it's fine. This is unironically how it felt doing this entire system, so if you don't understand it, you do understand it. And so we're going to do this the math way. Postulate 1, you don't have to agree. If anything, I would actually prefer you disagree. Time is a thing to relieve some of the stress that is coursing through my veins. When you sit down with your Greek New Testament, as you all do every night, I'm not going to read Splagano because I can't say that correctly. I am borrowing this from a scholar because I was too scared to come up with my own wording. So am I taking a side? Yes. Am I at least informing you of whose side I'm taking so that if you want to argue, you can know who to fight and not me? I wasted about 30 minutes finding this picture of a dog. Actually, we should not talk about that yet. This is the Alon's interpretation of the Stoic verb. Is it the solution? No, actually, I'll probably tell you. I'll change my mind about this in probably 6 months. So I can at least have a closed paper and get a decree. Immediately, it broke my parallelism. I was mad at the Word document. Everything fell apart, and I was emotionally unstable. And why did I think that? It's because that's what grammars are telling me to assume. These are the receipts. This was not really fun to make, and it's probably not fun to look at. I took his actions arted because they were conveniently in an index for me to use. I bugged you probably 18 times this semester, and you never pretended to be annoyed. So I really, really appreciate that.
Dr. Shelton should go first because he has seniority.
He said, what? I can't hear you.
Heard that. Well, I noticed in this presentation that you are dressed in black. And I want to know if that's because you're a mortician here to bury Axiom Sart or an assassin to kill it.
I'm dressed in black because I knew presenting this paper would be my funeral.
I would say to the macro-linguistic community, when you guys make up your mind, come talk to us. Why are you even talking about Axiom Sart?
Are you done, sir? Well, you could go all night. But what are you going to tell me about Paul that St. John Chrysostom already hasn't told me about Paul? And his answer was, nothing, but I'll say it more precisely. Don't even get me started on the synoptic problem. That was one of the most egregious, affronts to my mathematical training I've ever encountered. And thus I've studied Paul. What I'd love to see you do is go to SPL section because I want to see just how violent that would get.
The black suit. You would need the black suit there.
Punctiliar, if it depicts a punctiliar action, that was my personal favorite. If someone comes up to me and says, hey, I want to talk about your grammar paper, I will yap with you for hours.